Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we discuss the future of work with today's most innovative and successful people leaders. Today, I am joined by Adriana Bokel, who's the Chief People Officer at Pegasystems. Adriana, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Chris, for having me today.
Well, thanks for agreeing to come on. Before we jump in, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
Sure. I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I spend a lot of my time traveling. I'm now living in the US. I spend most of my career in EMEA, where I spend some time in Amsterdam, in Moscow, in Sweden, or in Stockholm, different countries, as well as some time in Asia. So I'm very passionate about the culture, the global mindset, and especially around the impact that global mindset has on HR and the impact that we can have in companies that are truly international companies. So in addition to that, I have really opportunity to work in really amazing companies, which I very grateful for the opportunity to explore and do different things that I think I wouldn't necessarily have planned for in my career.
Fantastic. And that's one of the things that intrigued me when we first spoke is the fact that your background and where you come from, but also the experience you've had in different organizations, in different countries, different sectors, which is very well versed. Was that a conscious decision on your behalf to challenge yourself? Or was it something just how it played out and the opportunities arise and you said, you know what, I'm just going to say yes, see what happens?
Yes, I would say I usually, when I get to this question, I usually say I'm going to put a parenthesis because usually in HR, you tell and you support people to plan their careers. My career is certainly not planned. It wasn't planned. It happened. I feel lucky to have had people that believed in me and gave me opportunities that I had no idea what I was doing when I got it. And almost like got a lemon and made a lemonade out of it. Also opportunities to travel and do things that at that time, some of my colleagues weren't willing to do, like do something like deal with a difficult employee experience in Moscow and spend the summer there, truly new to me. And it was just really, I'm very grateful for those opportunities because it really broadened my horizon and who I am today as a leader.
Yeah, you need to challenge yourself, don't you? And constantly stretch yourself. That's where the value comes. It's almost in those uncomfortable places is where you learn the most. Yeah. Right? And
I also tell my team, like, you have to feel comfortable to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, comfort in discomfort all the time.
Discomfort, exactly.
I sometimes feel like I take it to an extreme sometimes where when things get too settled in our business, I get worried. I'm like, because, I'm not busy enough or we're not disrupting ourselves enough all the time. So constantly trying to find ways of how do I disrupt Chris? And how do I disrupt our business? But it's not for everyone.
No, it is not. And I also think that it is a lot of change. You need to be reassessing. Like I feel I spent most of my career being a foreigner in another country. And that alone, it's a challenge on itself. To learn a new language is never going to be your real mother tongue. So those things also helped me to keep that in perspective. That change is difficult for everybody. It's just how you see that change and how you approach what happens during that transition.
Amazing. So in the current organization where you are now, one, tell us a bit more about the organization briefly for people that aren't aware. And two, what's really sort of top of mind and occupying your mind on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so Pegasystems is a technology company. We have been around for about 35 years, and we implement technologies to really transform and do digital transformation for organizations that are trying to really modernize and change their customer experience or the experience with their own customers. So what my focus here is to make sure that we continue having that global mindset. We have 1/3 of our employees sits in India, 1/3 sits in the US, and 1/3 between Europe and APJ. So I want to make sure that we keep, when I sit here back in Cambridge, that I have that global mindset and the experience of our employees across the globe to be a similar experience, similar to what we do with our customers out there. And the other piece, which is, I'm sure it's in the mind of most of my colleagues in HR, really the focus on talent, bringing greater talent, engaging greater talent, and retaining great talent, which nowadays with the competition as it is quite a job. And it's something I really enjoy, but it is not an easy task.
Yeah, well, this is why you enjoy it, because it's not easy, like we discussed earlier.
Yes, a challenge. It is a challenge.
You need to be challenged. And obviously the topic of this show today is obviously improving HR's reputation with the business through technology. And that's been a big passion of yours, right? Yes. This also kind of leads back to your career path, where you ended up working for one of you were a customer.
Yes.
And then you end up being the chief HR officer of that solution, of that technology provider. Could you share how, because that's quite a rare thing that happened. So could you share the background story and some of the work that you did at Biogen? Because I know you did some great work there, and then how that led to you working at PeopleDoc and then sort of where we are now, because I love that story.
Of course. So I was working at Biogen. I started at Biogen is a biotech company. I started there in Switzerland, and I was leading our European HR organization. And about 6 months after I started, the new CHRO came on board here in Cambridge, Cam Di Pietro. And he is a very innovative HR business guy who really came in to transform the organization and also through HR. And he gave me the task, I know you enjoy you have a global mindset. I need somebody who will help me with the HR transformation, especially around really centralizing and doing some global shared service and implementing the best of the best technology out there. So, and I'm not, to be honest, Chris, a very techy person. I tell my kids I can barely work with my iPhone. But it was a challenge. And I said, I'm going to deep dive and I'm going to learn as much as I can. I talked to a lot of people. I connect with a lot of people in the industry that had implemented best-in-class technology. I learned from them and made a choice for Biogen. And one of those technologies that I got the chance to implement was PeopleDoc. And what we were trying to do there is really to improve the employee experience, and in that time, of course, the candidate experience, but also to how can we as an HR organization be more effective and also provide a better HR, I call HR for HR for HR experience. And PeopleDoc together with Workday, which is what we end up implementing for our HCM, was a great combination and also helped us 100% decrease the time of our offers. I'll give you one concrete example that was mind-blowing for me. Before, we had about between 11 and 12 days between we made an offer and then we had to send the contract or the offer letter to the candidates, wait that time somebody to sign and send it back. We had over $100,000 in FedEx costs of the system.
Really? Wow.
And then once the PeopleDoc implemented, after 8 days, we moved from 12 days to 1.1 day response.
That's crazy.
So it was, we didn't even calculate it, to be very fair. We knew we were going to get efficiencies, but I had no idea how much efficiency we would get. And that had a lot of impact also on the broader HR organization there. Like for recruitment, we had lots of people that a lot of recruiters would wait until we really had a signed contract to close a requisition. So they were still kind of hanging in there. And after a day and a half, we were able to close, know if the candidate accepted or not, and then move forward with them recruiting new positions. Yeah. So it was just a really huge, in addition to giving the candidate, like they could get our contract to sign globally. There was only 2 countries that we couldn't do that at that time. So it was an amazing experience for the candidate as well as for us from an HR perspective. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. First and foremost, you've included the candidate experience, but what did that mean for you and the team? Yeah. So for us, it's really our team were able to be focusing on other things that we all liked it, but didn't have the time for it. Also, a lot of less concern around things like compliance, which I know it's not our favorite topic in HR, but it's still very important. We didn't have as much paper laying around. We were able to have a true paperless experience. And what it was challenging for me is also to work with legal, because they tended to be a little bit more risk averse, and also making sure that we were able to do that in most of the countries. There was very little situations that we couldn't. And it was an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves and think about it, also challenge ourselves in HR, challenge legal. At that time, both Workday and PeopleDoc were the first SaaS solutions in a Biogen altogether. So it was a really innovative solution coming from an HR organization, which is not usually the first one.
Yes.
That was for me, and that's where my love for the technology. I saw the impact on my team. I saw my team having time to really spend with the employees. And at that time for Biogen, we really wanted to focus on the patients. So if my team had more time to implement and to spend time with employees, those employees were able to go back to their work to be able to impact the patients more quicker as well.
Which is who you're serving, right? Yeah. So it all has to lead towards an improvement there. Exactly. Otherwise, it doesn't matter as well. Exactly. Can I just take it back for 1 second? Because when I speak to the leaders within our network and people like yourself, they're inundated with different solutions. And I'm sure when you first looked into this marketplace, it must have been pretty scary, because there's a new shiny object everywhere, right?
Sure,
and I always get skeptical when I hear companies say designed for HR by HR. You hear that a lot, right?
Yes.
What was it about PeopleDoc that made you choose them over the vast amount of solutions that are out there? Firstly, how did you come across them? And secondly, what kind of questions were you asking?
Yeah, so I would say I became an expert on that, even if it wasn't by design, because going through that and really choosing lots of other solutions. And I also learned to be more better at it as I went through different processes. For me, when I was specifically looking at PeopleDoc, one of two things that I would say it was how honest they were. I had gone through bad experience with some technologies in the past. And what my experience was is the people would sell to me everything I wanted to hear. And then once I signed, they were all gone. And then the implementation was quite painful. I always say it's like I have lots of white hair from bad implementations.
I'm sure people listening feel your pain.
I'm sure they do, because that is not, in one way, it's good to know it's not unique, but on the bad side is unfortunately not unique.
I know.
Because they go through so many of that. I would expect that the companies would improve through the times. But I think that is actually what made me so passionate about PeopleDoc, is because their customer service was different than the solutions I had implemented before. And their focus on making our organization and our implementation successful. And really trying to, like, the answer, when we sent a question, we had never done that before. It was our first time. Our whole team was new to that type of solution. So we didn't even know what to ask sometimes. And I think that was a lesson learned too. I started talking to other customers from other solutions. And one of the questions I ask now, even today, I said, what do you wish you would have asked before you started the implementation? So that is my standard question, because I think all of us who have gone through implementations, there's always things you wish you would have asked that you just don't know because you don't know. And I think that is part of what I like doing. Those podcasts, I'm always open to help other people to go through their implementations. I do believe in giving forward. I have used help in the past, and I'm happy to give help. I do believe that's about the HR function for me. And I think that is when I was successful implementing PeopleDoc, and the employees were able to see their files, the employees were able to see their pay slips within a click in their one system, that improved what they thought about HR. And in the end of the day, improved my reputation as an HR function, on how can technology improve the employee experience, the candidate experience. So that is where, for me, what this is about. And when I became, of course, I talked to a lot of their customers before they became customers about the experience. And I'm very honest. I mean, not everything worked perfectly, but the majority, my experience was very powerful in a way that on the day of we went live, I remember sitting with my head of HRIS, and we say, okay, let's wait. What is going to break now? And that has been the experience in the past, that last minute something was going to break down. And we went live without anything. And then she said, is that it? Were we live? And that it was just an amazing experience that we were able to have a seamless launch without anything crashing. We went live globally at the same time.
Wow, that was my next question. So you didn't even trial it in one market. You just went straight in, fully global. Just go for it.
And because I spent most of my career working in American companies, but sitting someplace else, and often sometimes feeling as a second class citizen, because I was always the second or the third. I'm a big believer that as much as possible, and I understand there is different circumstances, but as much as possible, you should go live globally. All employees are the same and should have that one good experience at once. So we went live, and it was very great. From day one, we started getting a lot of comments from the employees and from the HR organization, also from our HR business partners sitting in the different countries. They were from one day to the other able to see the files of the employees online. So it was a very rewarding experience for sure.
Amazing. And just to go back to your previous point, what were those questions you would have asked looking back? Yeah,
so I think one of the questions is really, walk me, I am an employee, walk me what I would see. Or if in case of HR, go and walk me what is the HR experience. I think often when we go to those demos, the people who are doing the demos have access to everything because they have like an...
It's too much. Yeah.
It's just too much. And then you don't really see the one or the second or the third experience, which is not the same because you have different securities and different administration.
Different dashboards for whoever users.
Exactly. So that is one of the things now that became part of my standard questions or what, and even I asked I just had another vendor for another situation, and I asked, okay, what I didn't ask you that I should have? Or why have you lost some of your bids? Things that...
That's a good question. Yeah,
and I mean, and you also see how open and honest, I mean, every company loses bids, right? I mean, it's just what it is, and how open and honest. And that was one of the things that I really appreciated about PeopleDoc. It was not selling something that it wasn't live yet. I knew that I was getting into it. I knew the things they were still working on it. And that was, for me, a more honest and genuine experience than buying something that says, oh, it can provide you everything. And then you go live and you realize that's not quite that.
What support did you, or training or guidance did you provide the employees in a rollout? What did the rollout look like? So you ensured that everyone was on board and engaged and everyone connected with it straight away?
Yeah, so my CHRO at that time, Candy Piotr, believed that any solution that is a good solution, you need no training, because it should be the Amazon experience, as he calls.
You shouldn't need training if he's got a good user experience.
To do any training.
Okay.
So to be fair, we did train the HR organization on it because there is the back office work.
Oh, that's understandable.
Yeah. We didn't do the training for the employees. We did have like almost like a half an hour now, 30 seconds or a minute recordings on what they would see. We had some, not flashcards print out, but like PDF flashcards that people could see if they needed. We did implement support, a chat support and request support. People could ask if they had any questions. We also helped to do some train the trainers with the HR business partners on the ground if they got questions from employees. And we also try to right away ask them to use. So for example, we were using PeopleDoc for the employee file management and for electronic signature. So within 2 weeks that we implemented, we send a document for everybody to sign. So,
through PeopleDoc. For
PeopleDoc, like similar to, it was a credit card, like we had to get everybody, we changed the credit card companies and we had to get everybody to sign that document, which in the past it would have been manually on the paper and we would have to track down. So we planned together with finance, okay, can we wait until the launch so we actually have something concrete that they have to do, so they also have a positive experience. So, and at that time we had 6,000, 7,000 employees and we only have 4 issues, 4 people that couldn't do it.
Wow.
And so work that they had done it in the past, it took them 32 days. We were able to finish within about 12 days from all globally for all employees to have signed that document.
One of the difficult things always is to measure success when it comes to rollout. What does success look like for you, and how did you that was one great example, by the way, of success. But what are some of the ways that you and the team sat down and said, is this a success? You shared some other examples, but is there anything else that you used to measure the success of this?
Yeah, so we did have some things that we were trying from. It was not a financial reason we went for it, but of course, saving some money is great. So we saved some money around things like mailing. We also did some additional KPIs on environmental because we wouldn't have to print the paper and we wouldn't have to keep the paper. So there was those 2, financial, environmental, and then there was what we call the employee experience. So
the most important,
which is very important also from our own HR. So we send a little bit of almost like like an NPS for employees to get through the entire, it wasn't just about PeopleDoc, it was about the entire experience that we had just launched. The feedback, it was amazing. And it was just amazing to see, how much proud we were of what we were able to offer to employees. And it was a journey, Chris. It wasn't something like it happened very fast.
I know, and it seems for everyone listening that it seems so easy. And imagine what were the biggest sort of challenges you had to overcome during this?
I will tell you, and I'm sure some folks out there that are listening to this will be able to relate. The CHRO, when he offered me the job, and I still remember like getting the phone call from him and saying, "You want to do this?" And I said, "What type of challenges do you think I'm going to experience?" And then he said to me, "You won't believe that, but you will tell me in a year that I was right." And I said, "Oh, I don't know about that." And then he told me, "Your biggest challenge will be your own HR organization." And he was extremely right.
So it was not even about shifting the employees over to the new system. It was actually retraining, reskilling, and educating your own.
You just had a very important word. You said reskilling. I think that is the HR, since they weren't spending as much time, how do I say, doing some work that the manager should be doing. Change the way they support the business. And that was a true challenge for some of the folks. And that was, I think, the biggest, it was often issues were coming up that it wasn't really from the managers. It was from the HR having a hard time on deal with the new technology and be trained on the technology, understand not to use paper and to do it online. And that is more of what I saw. And I need to say, I implemented PeopleDoc at Pega about 4 months ago because I'm very passionate about the work and how enables my function. And I need to say it's similar here to some extent. So it was, of course, I learned a lot through it and I did a lot more communication on it. But it is still something that I think that is one of the reasons we are speaking today for me personally, is because we have an opportunity as an HR function to challenge ourselves, to be more bold, and to be less risk averse. That is, the world is going in that direction, if we want it or not.
Yeah, so you got a choice.
You have no choice. So if we can lead that change and be part of that transformation for organization and help organizations. Also, if you look at all the millennials coming, all the generations after us, our kids and the kids of our kids, they won't even know what paper is. Like, how long ago we were talking on the phone, we've had the little things there, and my kids haven't even seen one. And so I think those are the things we need to be forward thinking and thinking ahead of the game. And one of the things here at Pega that was really important to me is to change this notion that HR is a note taker. So and that was one of the things I talked to Alan Treffler, the CEO here, when before I even joined, I said, I'm not the type of leader that will just take please hire this person or do this. Of course, I'm happy to help and enable those as well, but I'm a challenger. And I will have those conversations. I want to understand why, and I understand what's the longer vision for certain things, because that is how I really can contribute to the organization.
Yeah. And it goes back to why we're doing this in the first place, as you said, is about making sure we can improve HR's reputation and be a strategic advisor to the business. And this really allows you to just, all of the admin becomes automated, gives a better user experience. It frees up your time and the team's time to focus on more value add tasks to support the business.
That's
as well, which is, and we're missing a point here for everyone listening, which really intrigued me. The fact that you ended up leaving Biogen and working for PeopleDoc as their chief people officer, which I found. And by the way, one last point, you did mention, I think you also mentioned to me at Biogen, you changed the job title, right?
Yes. No, it was actually at
was it PeopleDoc?
PeopleDoc, yes.
Oh, PeopleDoc, sorry. So you changed it to chief people officer rather than chief HR officer. Can you briefly explain why behind that?
Yes.
Then we'll jump in.
I am a true believer that sometimes if you're trying to make a statement and change the status quo, if you change the title, even if you might not necessarily change every single thing you do, it helps the organization and the business see the role differently than it was the predecessor. And I did the same thing at Pega. I joined Pega after the CHRO has retired. He was a great guy and he built an amazing foundation here. But what I was asked to do and what I wanted to do here was to build from where he left, almost really focus on talent, on engagement, and also on enabling technologies, really think differently about the people organization. So we had a conversation that I was going to be the chief people officer, not the chief HR officer. My role is similar to most CHROs out there, but it is a belief that I wanted to come into Pega with a statement that what I was going to what I was going to bring to the organization was different than my predecessor. Okay.
And explain to everyone why leave the Biogen role and then work for a HR solution provider. Obviously, you had a great experience with PeopleDoc, but that's one thing. Another thing is then going from a client
yes.
to becoming the chief people officer. So how did that happen?
And I will tell you even a little bit more out of that, because there is a little bit of a piece in between that most people don't know. Chris, so I was spending some time talking to a lot. So I implemented PeopleDoc and I became a little bit the advocate when they were talking to clients. The clients, of course, like prospective clients, wanted to talk to people that have implemented a solution. So I'm happy to do that because I did have a good experience. So, and I had a lot of those calls, and I happened to be in Paris, and I was presenting the PeopleDoc. PeopleDoc has a conference they call the HR Heroes, and it was in Paris, and I went there to talk about my experience. And at that time, sitting and said, Jonathan, who was the CEO at that time from PeopleDoc, said to me, "You're already working for us because you spend all that time talking about," and it was a little bit of a joke. It was in October. He said, "Why don't you just come and work for us?" So it became like, you're having a nice dinner, have a glass of wine. And we kind of once in a while would talk after that. He said, "I mean it. If you ever want to consider coming and joining us." So a couple months later, I was fascinated by also what other organizations I was talking to that were interested in PeopleDoc and what they were trying to achieve. So I really saw as an opportunity to impact the function of HR. So my organization at PeopleDoc, my organization at Biogen was bigger than the entire company at PeopleDoc. So it was a double change. Not only I was going to a vendor, I was going to a much smaller role. And I actually didn't start there as a CHRO. So I started there in sales. So I became Chief Evangelist Officer, which was a biggest challenge for me in my career to move from HR, drop everything. I had no HR reports, and to move into PeopleDoc to lead their consulting business and to lead supporting HR for HR and build the HR practice. What
was the biggest challenge or learning moment? Because that's a huge shift. And by the way, I'm seeing more and more HR leaders make that shift. By the way, Wendy Murphy, former HR director over at LinkedIn, has now moved over to head up sales in LinkedIn solution and LinkedIn Talent Solutions. So, and it's a lot of the leaders are doing this now. Why did you make that decision, and what did you learn during it?
Yes, so I think there was two specific reasons. I have just finished an MBA at MIT with a lot about being a principled leader. And that has influenced a lot about the idea of building, going to a startup and focus on technology, but also really, what do you believe? Like really looking back and looking internally, what is the legacy you want to leave in the world? And what are the things that you really believe that you want to fight for? And when I look back, this is one, I love what I do. I love being Chief People Officer here at Pega. And I also love influencing the lives of the employees and our candidates. But I also love the impact that I believe HR can have with companies and the outcomes of those companies. So I saw the opportunity for me to not only support and help PeopleDoc grow, but also be able to influence many different companies at once, because many companies were going through that transformation. And at that time, which I believe is still a little bit today, many companies haven't done anything like that. And so everybody's looking for support. Everybody's looking for guidance. Everybody's looking for best practice. And of course, having somebody who have done it before, I'm credible and I'm honest. I'm honest as well. So I will tell you, these are the things that work out for us. That are the things that didn't. And if I was going to do differently. And I think for me it's important because, I mean, every implementation, there's always something, every situation you make assumptions before, and some of them turn out not to be true. So those things, I think, talk to the opportunity. And I just saw an opportunity to make a broader impact. And I'm still connected with a lot of those leaders that I helped at that time. And I'm a big believer, even more today, the impact that the technology in general has. And so that is where I decided. And after 6 months, John and Clement, which were the founders there, said, okay, can you also take HR? You're doing such a good job. So then I became their chief evangelist and their CHO, or chief people.
Oh, that's why you had it. I saw that you had it at the same time. Exactly. So that makes sense now. Because I was wondering how you're doing both, but I feel like you're in a unique position where you get to influence the product and the impact it's having, and the same thing within the organization itself. So it's pretty incredible.
It was, and also for me, helped a lot what I do today at Pega, because I spend a lot of times going to the client and doing demo calls or demo on sites. And I spend a lot of time doing enablement for those sales teams, telling them what are your clients, what are they interested, how do you connect with them. So I think that is now today I'm much more able to build that empathy and understand what the client sees. And for example, I would sit in one of those demo, and of course I would be there representing PeopleDoc, but I sat there and I said, if I would be the other side, how would I respond to that?
You are the other side.
Exactly.
That's what makes it unique, is that you are both sides. You are the customer, and so that's why I love when I see the CHROs or moving into sales roles in organizations. It makes me smile, because I'm like, you could not have a better person. in that position.
Yeah.
The person who lives and breathes it and implements it and on a day-to-day basis is the person who's selling the solution. How incredible is that?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't get much
and that is, I
better.
think, what the founder saw as the opportunity to.
For me as a founder as well, even I'm like, that's so exciting. To have someone like yourself in our organization, for example, we speak to HR executives every day, right? It doesn't get much better than that. So when you were speaking with, again, I want to just to provide some practical guidance for everyone listening. When you were speaking with those companies who were considering a solution like this, what were the main concerns that they had? And what was sort of the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome with them?
So I think that was the main concern in general is, can the solution do what they are saying they are doing?
Simple, but yeah.
I think in general, probably, I mean, we do have, I think the technology in general sometimes have, in HR, I can say for sure, have a little bit of a bad reputation because they sometimes sell things they're not quite ready to do. So that was one of the concerns, and wanted to hear how did I implement it in some specific countries that might not be as straightforward as the US or the UK. And so that was one. And I think some of the hurdles is really, how do I build a business case to convince my company that we should do that? So I think that is usually where the HR professionals needed more help. Because it is not always, I had a mandate, but not everybody has a mandate. So sometimes you do have to put your hand up and say, okay, I think that's what we need to do to modernize, to upgrade the organization and be able to move HR to a different level. And that was something that like even talking about sharing some of the things I have done or have seen other clients do, that helped in general people that were going through a similar transformation.
Were they using your examples? What advice would you give them in terms of how you sell this? Because essentially you need to sell it internally and then justify the investment. What advice would you give them of how to
Yes, so one of the things I would say, Chris, that I learned through doing that a couple times now is really sell the vision. Not what you're going to change here. How is the experience going to be different? So really doing what I call before and after scenarios. So today you send things through email, like make it very concrete so that people can relate and understand, that is going to do. Because if I say, I'm going to implement electronic signature and employee file,
no one's going to relate to it. Yeah.
Especially if you're not in HR and you're sometimes pitching to the CFO or to the CEO. So really make it concrete. So today we send the documents and we print paper and we go to the next door to somebody else to sign because it has to be 2 signatures or we have to send to another country to sign. And then we send it to the candidate, like make it concrete. In the next week, once we implement this, we'll press a button, it will go to email to Chris will sign, and then Chris automatically will send to the candidate. So within you have 11 days, you will have 1 day.
This is what it is, and this is what it means, and this is what it means for you. And it's so very, very practical for them to understand. Because otherwise you could overwhelm them with different features and the way it's just too much. It is
too much even for the own HR organization. You have to try to sell. You have to sell the vision and then work through it back on how you're going to get that to work.
I know I'm going back a second, but what was the initial reaction of your team? Were they like, yes, this is amazing, and then the solution gets implemented, then they're like, oh, this is a headache? What was the initial reaction for the team? And then
I would say it was the opposite way. It was the opposite way at the Biogen. I will tell you a little bit about the Pega experience. At Biogen, people said, I don't know if we need that. I don't know if we are ready for this. I don't know if we can do. So usually it was like, we cannot do this in this country. No, that is not possible. You can go, you need paper, you need to sign. So that was the first. And then
and that's from your own business. That's from your own HR organization.
My own HR organization. And it was how I made it as a joke to them afterwards. It was like, how can I not be successful? That was, I should have asked that question. I got a lot of but this and that.
How did you overcome that as the leader?
So I took a different approach there, and because it became a little bit frustrating for me to see how much opportunity we had, and see that my own function was struggling with the change. So I set several meetings. So I met with the legal department back in Cambridge. I got them on board. I then made them comfortable with the different countries, and they came with me, and we met together with every single HR business partner and the country legal person, if there was a legal person in that country.
Wow, one-on-one.
We did one meeting for everybody, and then we did follow-ups with everybody who would still struggle with the change. And I wanted to hear, tell me what exactly is what you are concerned about. So,
but this is great. This is great.
And then we went through it, and we started to say, okay, for the Netherlands, this is the concern. We went through, okay, this is how we're going to handle with the concern. We're not ignoring the concern, because it wouldn't help me, Chris, or the organization. I launched something, and in the back end, they are still using their own old process. Yeah,
you have to acknowledge it, and yeah, exactly. And there's no easy way of doing it. No. Like you said, you have to address it one by one. There's no magic bullet. There's no silver bullet.
It's not the same either. Every country has different legal like specialities that you have to handle. And it is about the HR people. So my experience says that if you have HR people in those countries that have gone through, worked in organizations that have implemented that or have had a shared service before, they are much easier to work through that than if you had organizations or people who have never or have been here in a company for a long time. So I think that is where you need to make an assessment of your people before, and that would help with your change management. And that was what I would say happened here. I have gone through everything of that before. So I was proactive of being able to do some of that change management. And I still had people saying, oh, you cannot do this in this country, or you can do this in that country. And
you're like, I've been here before.
Exactly.
I know, and that's never ending. No matter what you do, that's always going to be the case.
Always.
And during any of these transformations, there's always going to be people that you need to bring on board. You get the early adopters, you get the people in the middle, and then you get some people that are just never going to come along for the journey. But you can only do so much.
Exactly.
From that point of view, fantastic. Is it now? Where did the Pegasystems come in to this equation? So obviously you're at PeopleDoc now, Chief People Officer, living the dream, selling the dream. At the same time, where did this come from? Why move? Why this organization?
Great question. So about last year, probably around May timeframe, John and Clement, which were the founders of PeopleDoc, got this amazing offer from a bigger HCM ultimate software to integrate PeopleDoc into their solution.
So they're definitely doing something right then.
Yeah, exactly. And they were very successful in Europe. They knew the market very well. Ultimate was very a US-centric company. So I had to live the dream, to be honest. It was an amazing experience. I came here to I went there to spend the time with the organization, John and Clement, and to build the team. And I realized I wanted to have that memory of that, and then at the same time, I got a call for Pega, who was looking for a different type of leader, who was looking for somebody to do some transformation and bring some different type of thought leadership into the people function. So I said, you know what? That's a great opportunity to build something. It's a good size company. We are 5,000 people. We have a good foundation. So I have the opportunity to come in, do an assessment, to choose what's the best solution going forward, and really implement and go through a nice journey here. So around the summertime, I waited until the acquisition went through it. I wanted to make sure I was there for them during that time. And then I moved to Pega last summer.
Yeah, I like the way that you wanted to leave on that high note. And I would say, sorry, maybe not say high note, but you want to leave the memory there, because otherwise you're going to be going through the transformation and the acquisition. And I know how much that takes a lot. So I think that's a great time. So I completely understand why you made that decision now. And well, look, you haven't completely left them, because as soon as you joined, you implemented PeopleDoc. So
Exactly. So every time I go to Paris, I still stop in the office. I say hello. It is important. I mean, was a great time, and I still feel very proud of the achievements we had. And I still believe this is a great solution. That's why I have implemented here as well. I still think there is nothing like it in the marketplace. The customer service is still amazing.
Did they give you a discount, Adriana? Did they give you a nice discount?
A little bit, not that much. John, listen to that. Not as much as I should. No. But it's a great solution, and I think it's helping here. Pega also had everything in paper. We still had the people come in and sign. I signed my contract on paper. And that is one of the things.
Like, oh, I bet that hurt you. I mean, it's like, no.
It did hurt. I'm coming to a technology conference. So the CEO asked me in my first 2 weeks, was there any aha moment with you coming in? And I think he was expecting this, I don't know, very different answer. And I said, yes, that I had to sign and send back my offer letter.
In a technology company.
A technology company. So he laughed. Now, 8 months later, now we are fully digital and globally, and that is a really great experience to know that I was able in this year to make that small but a significant impact to the company already.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we partnered with PeopleDoc as well. Every time I speak to one of our customers, I keep coming across customers that keep saying great things about PeopleDoc, which is why we don't typically partner with companies for the show. But I really wanted the practitioner perspective, which is why I love to speak to you today. I love your journey and experience. It's very unique. And there's not many companies that I speak to that have clients that really want to talk about their work. There's another company I'm working with at the moment. It's called Glint with LinkedIn. It was a LinkedIn company now, and I'm always getting people of glowing reviews. And PeopleDoc is one of those companies that keeps coming back as well. And it's great to hear it from you. There's one thing hearing it from them, but there's another thing hearing it from you, the person living it as well. So before we wrap up, if there's one parting piece of advice for other leaders that are on this same journey, going through that digital transformation in their own organization, what would that be? And also, what's the best way for them to reach out to you if they have any questions or want to get in touch with you personally?
So I would say my biggest advice will be, don't be afraid. Challenge yourself. I'll finish with the way we started, Chris. If we don't upgrade our game, somebody will upgrade us. So it's just the way it is. Nothing is going to stop the evolution of technology. We have an opportunity, and I do think there is a huge network, and I belong to one of those. If anybody's thinking about going through this, don't know exactly how, feel free to connect me through LinkedIn. I'm happy to provide you my email, and I have calls at least once or twice a month with folks that are going through it. I'm happy to share my experience, and it's not just about a vendor; it's really experience as a practitioner and things.
Yeah, exactly.
Through this, so I'm happy to do that. But I do think it needs to start with us. We need to be ready to challenge, to fail. Because through those transformation, failure, it is part of it. And we needed to feel comfortable, that we also uncomfortable, and that that we can learn from experience and we can improve the companies we work for.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us live on LinkedIn. I know I threw a curveball at you when I spoke to you and said, we're going to do this live. And you're like, what, Chris? We're going to go live? I was like, come on, let's make it happen. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us. For everyone listening, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you head over to hrdealers.com, you'll find all of the show notes from the episode, links to any of the resources, links to Adriana's LinkedIn profile if you already can't find it now, even though she's tagged in right there as well. It's pretty easy. Apart from that, thank you all for tuning in. Adriana, I'll speak to you again soon, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.